Hello, my friends. It's kind of surprising, but it seems like definitely Ukraine started the counterattack in Pokrovsk direction. Ukrainian forces advanced from Mirnograd towards Pokrovsk. That is unexpected. I thought that the best variant for Ukraine would be to withdraw the forces from Mirnograd straight away into this small bottleneck, but it seems that the Russian army was not capable to reinsure their positions to secure them in Pokrovsk itself. Yeah, sometimes there was the presence of the Russian army elsewhere in Pokrovsk and behind Pokrovsk, and still they have those kind of the attack vectors from the southern area, but Ukrainian infantry was spotted in a central part. Crazy. Yeah, let's go for this interactive map with a higher resolution. Let's click just on this picture. So the video was published by 425th Skirla Brigade. They show those kind of the thermal images with the Ukrainian armed forces, plus many more operations within the territory of the settlement. Some of the streets and private households. They also show the Russian infantry walking full height in one of the streets. The operation of the Ukrainian drones, also in the dense populated, if we may call those previously probably dense populated areas. Some of the fragments of the video are being geolocated and posted today, but again it is hard to tell when those drone videos were taken exactly, what date. But this video is definitely a fresh one. It shows Ukrainian soldiers near Pokrovsk Stela. That's the big sign on the entrance to Pokrovsk itself, where previously Russians delivered their Russian flag, probably with the help of the drone. So here the small group of the Ukrainian soldiers went southbound. The sign is located over here on the entrance to Pokrovsk, and here is probably the different color accidentally used by my co-host because it's the Ukrainian soldiers entering Western Pokrovsk industrial zone near town entrance sign. So Ukrainian soldiers. And you see that the Ukrainian soldiers are being spotted in multiple of the areas, so Russia is in lack of the control. Yes, Pokrovsk is not that occupied as Russians mentioned before. In general, those are the great news, especially for the Ukrainian armed forces in Mirnograd, who still have the chance, from what I see, to evacuate from the area. Awesome. Yeah, I'm very, very surprised, guys, because the previous signs, they showed the Russian movement deep. They even penetrated this road connecting Grishina village, which is the main supply line for this entire group. Yeah, it was cut already. But it seems like the situation for Ukrainian army group is far, far better than expected. Yeah, still, I think that it was a mistake to keep Ukrainian soldiers that long in Mirnograd. But today's news, they're fantastic. And why do I think that it was a mistake? Because it's evident that the Ukrainian soldiers were forced to surrender to Russians, and here, yes, in this area, southern Mirnograd. Later on, Ukraine have withdrawn from this place, mostly concentrating the forces in Mirnograd itself, northern area. But there were at least two of the occasions then Ukrainian soldiers were trapped and unfortunately unalived by Russians. I mean, Russians took Ukrainian soldiers as prisoners of war and later just canceled them. Those are the war crimes which Russians continue to do out there. Well, Ukraine also takes the Russian prisoners of war at the same direction in Pokrovsk and Mirnograd. However, Ukraine doesn't cancel those. Yeah, you see, they are presented. There was the video film with them by Ukrainian Brigade Rubish, and our guys, they're trying to save lives of Russians actually, because later on they could be used to exchange for Ukrainian prisoners of war, which sometimes Russia also takes, but not all of their units are taken. They're just crazy. I mean, those Russian soldiers, they're barbarians. Yeah, the front lines are fluctuating. It is definitely hard to tell what is happening, especially in this very hot direction as Pokrovsk, Mirnograd. Russians reported 2 days ago that they locked this bottleneck, so there's the physical encirclement of the Ukrainian army, but we see that it's not true at all. Well, that's the reality of the war. That's the fog of war, literally. Then enemy forces and Ukrainian forces are advancing with the help of the bad weather conditions and the poor visibility. And also there is the fog of war because we have just the partial information coming from the front line. Still, there is not enough robust evidence to draw the exact, precise front line. Here it's absent mostly. And here is one more reason why I think that Ukraine should have withdrawn its forces well before. All of those are Ukrainian MRAPs and other vehicles between Pokrovsk and Rodinske. So this bottleneck, which Ukraine uses for supplies to withdraw the forces to get new forces to this pocket. So the most of the losses there are happening not in Pokrovsk itself, not in Mirnograd, but on the way in and on the way out. Alright, and just now we have the update from the Miko Center 3. I don't know actually what is happening out there. Ukraine attacks from this side, Russia attacks from that side. Ukraine still counterattacks towards the central part of Pokrovsk. Yeah, the situation is boiling. Both of the sides operate with a small number of the forces, limited groups, drones. It's like that. The good news is coming from Novopavlovka. The Russians 2 times tried to get this village under control, but with the help of the Ukrainian strikes, it became a very big trap for Russians. They lost lots of the forces there. Most of those Russian attacks, they just fail. Now let's go to Hulaypole direction. Here, Russians didn't propel for the last 24 hours. This update came from, I guess, 2 days ago. We know that Russians show their presence in Zatisha, that's the last village before Hulaypole for them to advance to. Here's the photo of them posing with some of the local regiment, division or something flag. They were spotted right between the anti-tank trench and the anti-tank Dragon Ts. We have the comment from Ryobke. Yeah, sometimes he writes good things, but sometimes he doesn't know what he's speaking about. Fortifications worth tens of millions of euros, constructed over several years, don't work if you don't man them. Russians captured the last village north of Hulaypole. Well, if he says about this specific picture, it's not the infantry trench, okay? This is the anti-tank trench used to create barricade or an obstacle for the enemy tanks. The infantry trench looks absolutely different. And yes, Ukraine built lots of those trenches all around the front lines, but now it is very dangerous, actually dangerous, to put soldiers into those trenches. Why? Because trenches do not help against the drone strikes. Actually, most of the casualties are happening behind the front lines nowadays in the trenches. Enemy is reaching everything with their drones, so we have to have this roof over the trench, and no one expected for the war to evolve that fast, so obviously enemy, Russian Federation, they didn't build those roofs. Yeah, Ukraine sometimes have those, but to build this roof requires significant amount of the resources, because you usually do it with the help of the wood or metal or something. It's not easy job. Then you just dig the trench, usual trench without the roof. Ukraine built numerous of those, but now they're mostly, I wouldn't say like totally useless, but Ukraine prefers to keep its forces in ruined buildings rather than in a trench. You have to have some sort of the protection for the infantry. In the best case scenario, underground basements or bunkers, but it's not everywhere out there on the front line. So for sure, the defense line is now fragmented. Yes, there is no infantry all across the front line waiting for the enemy to appear like in a Second World War or something. No, everything is dispersed. The gray zones could be tens of kilometers long. And the only way how you can protect settlements, villages, is basically to be located in settlements and villages. Russians are going straight forward with their flag operations, and in most of the cases they are being annihilated by Ukrainian drone strikes. I already showed you what kind of the soldiers the Russians sent for those flag operations. It doesn't mean that they took the ground. So even in this image, it doesn't mean that Russia may now send everything with their tanks. It's not a video game. There's just some lucky one who made it under the cover of fog with the Russian flag. And yes, there is no resistance because it's useless. Our guys are saving their lives to continue to fight, and the main defense is happening in villages, towns and cities. Our drone operators are flying from the basements, the remote antennas are installed somewhere, but our guys are protecting themselves. I'm not the military guy, but it seems like Ryobke is also far to be a military expert. At least I read our officers and military analytics who say that the usual trench will not save you any longer. Everything has changed. For the last couple of years, it is a totally different war. So the good news here that Russians didn't propel anywhere for the last 24 hours in this Zaporizhia direction. About Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, they also stuck there. I think their limited advancements with the small groups of the soldiers are happening mostly under cover of fog. Well, it looks like the weather was not that foggy yesterday. But it is evident that Russia will try to break through Ukrainian main defense that is ongoing from one village to another. They'll also try to cross the river, and you see, judging on the Russian aviation bomb strikes, they'll try to break in this direction, also trying to get Hulaypole under control. Well, Ukraine will lose. Yes, finally Ukraine will lose Hulaypole, and Russians will break through Ukrainian defense. It is just a matter of time, but Ukraine exchanges ground for the time. It is evident it is already happening. Well, here in Konstantinivka, Russia increased its presence towards Pleshivka. They advanced, but it happened like 2 days ago, something like that. If we go to the deep state, just today they came out with this update. Let's zoom into this place. It was yesterday. Yeah, here we go. Yesterday, today, but it happened 2 days ago. So we have some of the delay coming from this war map service. That's why I prefer to follow not just deep state but other analytics. I follow Maikos because he puts all of the data with those symbols, and you may check everything. The link for his Twitter account I'll put just in a video description below as usual, and there you may find this map. Our volunteers say that the situation in Siversk is also not good for Ukraine. Enemy entered the southern area of Siversk, and also they entered Zvanivka. I would say not that small village, and I wonder about the presence of the Ukrainian army in this pocket. It's hard to tell whether our guys are here. The only place where they could be is in this destroyed area. Even on satellite images you may see that this big farm was destroyed previously. Ukrainian army cannot just hide in tree lines. It's not possible nowadays for extensive period of time, absolutely. So I believe that this area could be a fully gray zone at least. In Siversk, the situation is way better than in Pokrovsk, because here is the supply line and Ukraine may always withdraw from the place. The fight for Siversk couldn't go for extensive period of time. Well, there is some terrain difference here. Let's check out Google Earth. So here we go with Siversk and Zvanivka. Zvanivka is flooded by Russian troops, and Siversk is just partially occupied from the south. But what is this terrain? Is it that big over here? Well, not that big, I would say. Yeah, I would say it limits them between this lake and this terrain. Plus, there are also two more rivers. One created this lake. It goes like this, Sukha River, and one more, Bakhmutovka River, goes on the right. Well, that might slow down the Russian advancement from Zvanivka towards Siversk. But Russians, they have the attack vector from this side. They also can go here, but it's the bottleneck for Ukraine actually to use the drones against the Russian forces. Let's go to Liman direction. Here Russians advanced a little to this forest. They are getting more ground. Liman, the destiny is known already. Ukraine will withdraw the forces. That's it. It will happen the next year. Without proper supplies, Ukraine is unable to defend this city for extensive period of time. Also in Kupiansk we have, well, no changes for the last 3 or even 4 days. The same goes for northern area of Kharkiv and for Sumy region. Everything is stationary there. Well, in Kupiansk, Russians again tried to use the system of the underground tubes, in this case gas tubes, which are going from the northern area towards the Kupiansk itself. Well, at least there was the attempt of Russians to get into the city. Here this part of the tube is 21 kilometers long, and Russians managed to get into the Kupiansk in around 10 hours because they used the special tube transport. Some sort of the carriages or carts with electrical engines, so they are capable to infiltrate very fast to Kupiansk itself. From the information I have, this operation worked well for them, and they poured more infantry into Kupiansk. What the hell is happening in Krasnodarsky Krai? Ew. This is Russia, Krasnodarsky Krai. Star Wars. a disco looks like. They're shooting to every sort of the direction, like do 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 randomly everywhere. Missile flies, ooh. And by the way, missile hit some of the Russian residential building. Here it flies.
Ебать, она рычит. Пацаны,
Yep. Shit happens, Russian air defense system in operation. Yeah, of course they'll say that it's the Ukrainian drone that hit them, or maybe Flamingo missile, yeah, but actually the damage is not that significant. It's the small missile of the Panzer 1S system. The Russian air defense, yes. They're saying, oh, this is the air defense, it goes, hit it, hit it. It hit it. Oh, yeah, the Russian air defense performs the denazification. Really. Yeah, the special military operation may go not just in Ukraine. Krasnodar fills it very, very precisely. That's the Moscow region filmed today, this evening. Russian air defense was working. There is the trace from the Russian probably even S-400 or S-300 system. Yeah, it is not Panzer 1S, it is something bigger. Well, there were no ground Kabooms report in Moscow today, but this night is not yet over. Taganrog, Russia. On the way to Moscow. Yeah, happens. One more from the exact place in Taganrog, something was heated up out there. I already have a report that it was the aviation factory Bribes in Taganrog that was hit this night. And it looks like definitely something is severely damaged there. Geolocated and confirmed this area. And we have the fresh video from Taganrog. This is Illusion 76 airplane burning. Yeah, 100% it was hit, maybe not just once. Good job, Ukraine, good job. So not just aviation factory was hit, but also airplane, or maybe just airplane, who knows, but the strike on Taganrog continues. Yes, local channels reported it's the second strike, so initially the facility itself was hit and burning, and now it's the airplane. Illusion 76 is used to transport Russian military, their equipment, vehicles, plus infantry forces. Russia supplied something to Venezuela using those airplanes. Also, Kabooms were reported in the Russian Novorossiysk port, occupied Crimea, and occupied Mariupol. I monitor the information, so I'll update you as soon as possible with videos and everything. Also, I post videos in full on my Telegram channel. It is in the video description just below. Well, Ukraine does everything of that not just because it wants, but it's just the response of Ukraine on Russian strikes on Ukrainian infrastructure, because today Russia hit Kharkiv, Odessa, they hit logistics, military, civilian buildings, everything. Oh, a mishap happened in Russia. Some of the volunteers escaped from the Russian convoy. They are ex-prisoners taken from Russian prisons to fight in Ukraine, but it seems like they didn't really want to finish their lives, so they unalived their convoy guard and escaped. They're now running somewhere in Russia, hiding. Yeah, somehow they eliminated their escort after deciding not to fight in Ukraine. They escaped in Leningrad region, which is far away from Ukraine. The city of St. Petersburg is in Leningrad. There are lots of the stories like that. Just one I want to tell about. I was searching some information on the Russian channels and just checked out this one. Right, guys, just a few words about the peace plan capitulation proposal from Russia to United States and from United States to Ukraine. It was really sensational and shocking for the world for the last 5 days, but it is no more. So the plan doesn't exist. Ukrainian officials say that there is no more plan like it was proposed before, and Ukraine will stand on its own interests. Europe also says that it will support Ukraine. So it's understandable that it's just a big nothing burger from the very beginning, and 3 days ago I said about it, maybe 4, and it's now evident that it's a big fuck up by United States administration. That's it. That's it. Putin's advisor Ushakov said that 28-point plan was more or less acceptable for Russia, but Russia also wanted to correct it, but they are unaware of what it is right now, and for sure it is not acceptable for Russia, as well as the European plan presented. So Russia will continue to negotiate with American administration about reaching the stable peace in Ukraine. Something like that, but we understand that Russia is not willing to stop at all. The similar rhetoric is coming from Peskov, spokesman of Kremlin. What is interesting about that one, that it shows the crack inside the White House administration. For example, J.D. Vance is now melting down on some of the senators and congressmen who are opposing or were opposing that peace plan, capitulation plan that doesn't exist any longer. For example, Senator Mitch McConnell said that Putin has spent the entire year trying to play President Trump for a fool. If administration officials are more concerned with appeasing Putin than securing real peace, then the president ought to find the new advisors. McConnell said about it maybe 3 days ago, and he has been criticized by some influencers, and including J.D. Vance. This is a ridiculous attack on the president's team, which has worked tirelessly to clean up the mess in Ukraine that Mitch, always eager to write blank checks to Biden's foreign policy, left us. I wonder if the three candidates he replaced McConnell in Kentucky shared these views here. So J.D. Vance and Witkoff, an entire White House team together with Donny, they fucked up, and now they try to bully others. You see, we try to finish this war. We try to do whatever we can. Yes, of course. They are buffoons. They're incompetent, not leaders, but managers, if we may call them managers. And you know what? China is looking at everything of that. They see that after what Russia has done in Ukraine, they're being praised by White House, who even state that, okay, we're going to return Russia to G8, we're going to lift all of the sanctions, and we're going to press, no, not the aggressor, but we're going to press the victim to surrender, to resign, to cease existing. So why not to try Taiwan in this case? At first, sanctions, everyone would be angry, Europe, United States, Japan, South Korea. But after some time, like almost 4 years, they'll be again respected because it's the rule of force. So if we let this rule of force to exist, and Donny is doing everything for it to exist. Well, there's still difference between Trump and Putin, because Trump is more stupid than Putin, and he's a wannabe dictator. He's just not competent to become a dictator. But Trump's perception of reality is more like of Putin's. They neglect all of the international institutions, international law. They want to occupy, as he said before, Greenland and so on. So yeah, you understand. And the similar stuff goes for China, but China will outplay United States of America with the current administration. It's already evident because they're not competent at all. They're idiots who were somehow elected. Well, we have what we have. Guys, we are at the brink of the very big events happening. The previous world order is not existing any longer, so it's gonna be war. Well, I think that Donny will still continue to support Ukrainian military because basically MAGA supports Ukraine from what I understand. 72% of Trump voters believe we should broadly help Ukraine and hold Russia accountable for Putin's aggression, with over half of this group especially supporting actions including United States sharing intelligence with Ukraine or selling Tomahawks missiles to allow Ukraine to strike targets inside Russia. The majority of Trump voters continue to blame Putin for the failure to secure ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine, and only 16% of respondents support Russia's position that Ukraine needs to give up more territory. But sadly, J.D. Vance, Witkoff and Kushner, they go to this category, and they have influence on Donny, calling him to force Ukraine to surrender. But no, it backfired already. And since the Trump's ratings are downfalling, it is understandable why he is not saying about canceling military support any longer. It might just look on the social media that lots of the people do support Russia, Russian aggression, or the Russian army, or even Donald Trump, but most of the MAGA accounts or Russian accounts are based somewhere else. For example, the MAGA Beacon, South Asia, MAGA Scope, Nigeria, Dark MAGA, Thailand, MAGA Nation, Eastern Europe, non-EU, which is Russia. There's even a map where the most MAGA accounts are registered. You see, it's mostly Middle East, Africa and Asia. Yeah, the great part is also in the United States of America, but not that much compared to the foreign influencers. And those are definitely the bot farms created who are not just pro-MAGA, but they also propel the Russian narratives. And it's actually good that everything of that was uncovered just like that. So now you can check out any sort of the channel, for example, Russian armies from India, Kate from Kharkiv, I think she's from Ukraine, yeah, account is based in Ukraine Android application she used to log in. I'm very surprised that it was done on Twitter, but it showed the scale of the bot farming, especially those who paid by Russia and China. Well, even if the account is based in the United States of America, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a bot account, because the bot farms and paid influencers, they're everywhere, also on territory of USA. Russia pays almost openly to those influencers, and by the way, to politicians too. For example, one of the British politicians was even jailed for 10 years and several months, 10.5 years. He's the close friend of Nigel Farage, by the way. Let's watch this video.
Nathan Gill said nothing as he arrived to face the music at the Old Bailey. But during his time in Europe as an MEP, he had plenty to say, often supporting the Russian narrative around Ukraine, because he was getting paid to say it.
The Ukrainian government is in the process of banning the two biggest TV channels in the country.
Are you with us?
A Mormon bishop turned politician, Gill was a key member of Nigel Farage's UKIP and Brexit parties.
So it was proven that he received the money from the ex-Ukrainian member of parliament who fled to Russia and who worked with Viktor Medvedchuk, the close friend of Putin. Medvedchuk was the chief of the pro-Russian party in Ukraine before the full-scale war. Later on, he was arrested and exchanged for many of the Ukrainian warriors. Well, Medvedchuk created some sort of the syndicate to bribe European politicians, including UK politicians, to propel Russian interests and Russian agenda.
Tasked Gill with making pro-Russian TV appearances and speeches in the European Parliament. When police stopped Gill as he was about to board a flight to Russia and seized his phone, they found WhatsApp messages like this one, talking about gifts and postcards, code for cash.
This Gill was stupid enough not to clear his WhatsApp messages, where they spoke with Oleg Voloshin, this guy who works for Medvedchuk, so this is some sort of the clerk in this syndicate. So they delivered those postcards and Christmas presents to Gill directly in cash. Police researched his apartment and they found lots of the cash elsewhere. That's just one of those pictures.
Do you know what the Xmas gifts were or the Christmas gifts are?
No comment.
No comment. He also received crypto.
Allowing money to corrupt your moral compass constitutes a grave betrayal of the trust vested in you by the electorate.
So he was jailed for 10.5 years in prison. That's nice. That's awesome.
He hadn't just abused the trust of voters. He had fundamentally compromised the integrity of the European Parliament in its dealings with a hostile state, Russia, and at a time when Ukraine was in turmoil. This week,
and it's not just about Nathan Gill himself. It was just proved that he is in this syndicate. But that rabbit hole is deeper, and UK intelligence is working to uncover everyone. There are also some of the guys already in the scope from AfD party in Germany. And I just hope that all of them will be caught, prosecuted. Yeah, with those awesome news, my friends, I highly recommend you to subscribe for my Patreon or follow me on membership. The Patreon link you might find in the comment section just below. As for the membership, just press the join button somewhere over here. Only because of that support, I'm capable to film more videos for you every day. Guys, thank you for making this content possible. If you don't have this opportunity, you may just press like for this video and also subscribe for the channel, because that helps to propel video in YouTube algorithms. Thank you so much for that as well. My friends, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are and have a great time.